Good afternoon. Hi. Hi, friends. Hello, how are you? Such a supportive crowd. My name is Paula Cuneo, and as many of you know, I love my job. I have worn many hats at Oculus in my career there, including having the opportunity with the amazing team that's here to launch the Oculus Connect Developers Conference in its 4th year. And yeah, real pleasure. And as fabulous as this show is, and it is fabulous thanks to this group, I've never had more pride and more motivation to work harder, get to work earlier, and work better than in support of Oculus's work against social good. VR is rapidly becoming the modern hub of community building. We heard this today. We know this. Here we are, thousands of us gathered together. VR developers and creators who support each other and our content, who share best practices and collaborate on technology. We also create content that connects people. Look no further than Echo Arena tonight, 6 p.m., huge esports tournament with hundreds of gaming fans, a community coming together to spectate and compete in a game that we love. And then, of course, there's Facebook Spaces, where you actually get into VR with friends and family, collaborate, communicate, and connect. But VR can connect us in a different way. VR can connect us to people, to ideas, to information that transforms our way of thinking, changes our perspective, calls us to make the world better. VR can connect us for the purpose of good. So, what does good look like at Oculus? It all started with Creators Lab. Are there any Creators Lab people in the house? Yes, an amazing cohort of people. Oh, hi, how are you? So Creators Lab was founded in 2016, truly and purely for the purpose of elevating the people and causes that we believe in. And we did that with the belief that VR is special. It has the opportunity to allow us to step into someone else's shoes, to feel something different, to meet someone we've never met, and to be in a place we've never been before. It does allow us to feel differently and to feel empathy. I think that there's been a lot of talk today, a lot of talk over the last couple years about how VR is that empathy machine. And there's been talk. But as it turns out, early research says that that is actually true. This spring, USC students participated in a study called Headspace Vr. They used quantitative and qualitative data, including neurotechnology, to look at how VR stories change the way we feel. And it turns out that the root of creating empathy in VR is creating a real connection between the viewer and the characters, either in the first person by stepping into their shoes, or in the third person by walking beside them. And VR spatial audio really is the magic sauce for delivering that feeling of being there and delivering the most high impact emotion. So that's, creating empathy in VR is critical, right? But it's not the only way that we use VR for good. Great VR content, and the people who created this content are here in the room, and I mean this, great VR content can create awareness and drive us to action. I know this personally. VR called me to community and to mentorship. And it took me to jail for all the right reasons. I tell people this every once in a while, and later someone goes, "What were you in for?" And I'm like, I wasn't. I was a mentor. Shot on location. I hope everyone's seen this. If you haven't seen this piece, it's out in the Diversity Lounge. Shot on location in a California maximum security prison. Step to the Line, which is one of our first Creators Lab projects, is a documentary that asks you to rethink what you know and what you believe about prisoners, the prison system, and yourself. Has everyone seen this piece? Has anyone seen it? Pretty powerful piece. Ricardo's in the house. So I saw this experience in VR, and I knew that it was time for me to be called to the good work. So I worked with Defy as a mentor. I went to Pelican Bay State Prison. Lauren joined me for one trip. I went back again, and I even had the opportunity to watch those that I mentored graduate from an entrepreneurial program for inmates in front of their friends and family. It was an incredibly moving, transformative experience, one that I would not have had if I hadn't experienced it in VR first. Not only did it call me to community, but it also made me a voice piece for the cause. And I am super proud of the dozen or so folks from Oculus that are joining me on an Oculus-sponsored bus to prison, to Solano State Prison, later this month. So everybody's going to prison, which is always good. Defy is now using this piece as a training tool for volunteers and as an awareness vehicle. It has increased volunteer participation and donations. So VR really is doing good. But using VR for the purpose of inspiring good goes beyond cause-based content and storytelling. Great VR content can also educate and inspire. Grace Hopper. We actually were honored last week to bring Grace Hopper to the Grace Hopper celebration of women in computing, if only virtually, last week down in Florida. Grace Hopper celebration, as many of you know and some of you have been to, is the largest gathering of female engineers and computer programmers in the world, and it's named after this groundbreaking scientist. We were honored to showcase Breaking Boundaries in Science, Grace Hopper, which is a virtual reality experience that actually allows you to step into the shoes of this amazing woman and actually experience her work in historical surroundings, so pretty compelling. We talk a lot as women, very often, that if you can see it, you can be it. And I think now with VR, if you can experience it, you can do it. And I think that is a great example of VR for good. VR for good can also create new communities globally. I had the honor of speaking at the Rising Hands of Hope 15th anniversary event here in San Jose a couple of weeks ago. Rising International is a nonprofit that helps women in transition from homelessness and human trafficking and raises them out of poverty by creating a global network of entrepreneurs who empower each other to rise. Rising not only hires but trains women in countries around the world to learn a local craft. That craft then is sold by women in the Bay Area who are struggling with their finances and finding a stable income. Both those women have suffered either poverty, homelessness, human trafficking, abuse, and beyond. Many of them also are raising children, which is the #1 reason that when these women talk to each other about why they are so motivated to raise themselves out of poverty. When Rising did their anniversary event, their 15th anniversary, they decided to do something groundbreaking, and they created an experience called Rising Together 360. The people that created that content are also in the house, an amazing group of folks. Rising 360 actually allowed these women who have been supporting each other sometimes for a decade through this entrepreneurial program and have never met each other. In the actual experience, a woman in the Bay Area that has been a saleswoman for years stands next to the woman in Haiti whose painted scarves she's been selling and that have allowed her to pay her rent, and gets the opportunity to look at that person and express her gratitude. Really, really powerful experience. So connecting people, underserved people across the globe, is a way that VR continues to do good. And this is amazing. VR, great VR content, can also be repurposed to innovate and motivate. Game Changer, which is a nonprofit that goes into hospitals and provides gaming as a motivator, as a distraction, and as an element of pure joy for folks that are suffering and cannot get out of the hospital, mostly with fatally ill diseases. They've partnered with an organization, CS Mott Hospital, and together they are actually repurposing the content that you've created to motivate and distract in the hospital. What they are doing is connecting the VR team, and yes, there is now a VR team in the hospital system, so completely new channel, career channel for all of us to consider. That team is working with their OT and PT teams to drive their I can't remember what they're, patients, that's what they are, drive their patients to actually attain their physical goals in PT. So what they do is they expose a patient to a gaming experience that they're really interested in. They've said that the climb specifically is really interesting because it is absolutely beautiful. It's easy to play, but difficult to master. They observe those people in that experience and identify what exercises that they're doing and their range of motion. They then add exercise bands and weights to make sure that those folks are actually achieving those goals for PT. And it turns out that the patients are so involved in the experience that they forget the exercise and sometimes the pain that goes with it and are achieving their goals more effectively, more comfortably, and obviously with more fun. So this is VR for good, literally in action. And lest we forget, VR always entertains and delights. Gaming is good for you. And we are finding that while we know that gaming brings joy, it brings distraction from the day, from the troubles in our world, and in some cases, the barrier to actually get out of bed. We're finding in some cases that they are using VR in community rooms to get folks out of their beds, out of their hospital rooms, to engage with each other, to create community, and to be social and to heal. So, what is next for VR for Good at Oculus? A lot is happening. This year's cohort of Creators Lab are out in the field right now creating cause-related content that is really, really impactful. It ranges from getting literally human trafficked prisoners out of enslavement in India, to following a medical ship that's delivering health care to those that need it most off the coast of Africa. I just came from an amazing shoot with a nonprofit called Life After Hate that is working with recovering extremists in support and recovery. Amazing work. And then just this weekend, I don't know if Jess is here, just this weekend we had the opportunity to go down to Los Angeles, excuse me, and see a team prepare a, I wish it was champagne, prepare a musical number that was absolutely joyful and delivered exclusively by wheelchair dancers. The Oculus education team, the educational content team, who brought you the Grace Hopper piece, are also working on a number of really interesting components this year for content, including the virtual Anne Frank house. So you will be able to experience the Anne Frank house even more fully in VR than you can in real life, because they will have virtual rooms that aren't available in the real world tour, and that they're overlaying Anne Frank's diary elements right into the piece. And then the educational team is working on research to really figure out how VR is impacting learning. They're working with a number of institutions that are going to figure out how we actually learn in VR and how it impacts learning. And that research will support us all when that gets published publicly. So the question today is, what can you do to advance social good through VR as developers? Well, the first thing for sure is keep making great VR content. It brings joy, it brings innovation, it brings a sense of wonder, it brings a sense of the possibilities. I would consider how that content can be used to bring joy to those who need it most, and how we can deliver that together. I would consider how it could be repurposed to support the medical or educational institutions. Your next game could teach someone how to defuse a bomb. It could teach someone how to identify a new disease. You can also share your knowledge. We've just deployed RIFs to 90 libraries in the state of California, and we're expanding that program to Washington State and libraries individually in this country and actually internationally. We're looking for developers to help us create the content and the programming that will work best in libraries for everyone, particularly in underserved communities. Partner with us. We don't know what that looks like yet, and we need your help. You can also share your resources. Impact Creative, who did Rising Together 360, volunteered to create that content. It was donated, their time, their resources, their expertise. They will tell you, as they told me when I met them, that it was both life and career changing for them. That's a huge opportunity. And CS Mott, who is also here, has told me that they are, when they show gaming to folks in hospitals who are there sometimes for years and years, they want to do more than game, and they're starting to teach them how to code in Unity. They want to be game developers. How amazing to have a game developer come in and teach a master class in a hospital, or do it virtually. And then the last piece is that you can really share your time. There is still room on the bus to prison, and I can teach you how to sponsor one of your own. You guys are smart, experienced entrepreneurs who are leaning into the future. You have so much to share. And the entrepreneurs in the Defy program are looking for a way to envision their new future that may include VR. It may include you. Thank you.